Next, it's more about components. Here, let's say I've made a new component, and name it my function. And this function will print out the string saying my function, like this. And to call the function in a component, you have to use the magic keyword, remember, self, once again. So for example, I'm going to remove all this and add a new score here and say self dot my test score is 100. And this was how we call a property, right? For functions, you say self and then colon this time, then my function, and with the parentheses. So this is how we call a function. And let's see if it really prints out my function here. Okay, yes, it does. Actually, there is also ways to define a function inside another function. So for now, we call this my function in a separate function, right? But for now, we can use local again and function to make a new function inside this onBeginPlay function. I'll just say print a is our function name. In the middle, you can just do log print a to delete them and play. Oh, this is happening again. Oops, so I forgot to call our function at the end. You have to always write the name of the function in parentheses to make this run. Then I'll click run. Okay, yeah, you've got print a now. And you can also make this function have a parameter. So right here, I'm going to say that you need to add a number, and I'm going to print out the number right here. So I really have to put something like a number here, or else this won't be executed. So I'll just say number 8 and then run. Okay, so right now if I wrote this print a in front and then the number, so that's why it's printing out like this. So yeah, okay, this is how to make a function which needs a parameter. And then in this case, don't forget to put in the right data type. For this, it was a number, so I put it in a number. But then if I say something like vector here, this won't run. There's no, oh yeah, there's an error, see? So it says it failed attempt to concatenate in component 10 and 13. This just are not compatible. Okay. And I'm also going to show you how to return a value in a function. So let's say local a equals 3 and a equals a plus, I'm going to add this parameter here, and then return A. And let's say local B equals to print A 5 here. And I'm going to print log B. So returning is different from printing out, but still all the values in A should be saved here. So let's see if it will print out 8. Yes, it is, because here 3 comes in here as a default, and you're going to add a new number that comes in as a parameter. So it's 3 plus 8, you got 8. 3 plus 5, and you got 8. In Lua, you can actually get 2 return values. So let's say return A and B, and you'll need local B right here to do that. I'll say A plus 10 is B. B equals A plus 10, return A and B. So here, you'll also get 2 values. That's why I will put this. You need this 2 variable to get the values here. And I'll print out if it really is. So in this case, they've got a new parameter 5 here. So A will be A 3 plus 5, which is 8. And for B, it'll be A is 3 and plus 10, so it's 10. So this doesn't really use 5 here, but anyway, the result must be 8 and 13. Oh, it's 18 because the A here is now updated to 8, right? So 8 plus 10 is 18. So 8 and 18 is printed out. In, for example, if you forgot to give 2 values here, it doesn't really matter. Only the first value will come in, and the second value will be gone. So to demonstrate this quickly, I'll make a add function and say there's 2 variables to return here. So you get A and B as a parameter. You add them and say local sum. You're using this function that you've just made here. Say 4 and 5 in log sum. So before you wrote local function and the name of the function, then like the parameter, right? But you can also write it this way. So this is basically same with local function add function A comma B. It's the same. Just going to use it this way for this time, then run. As you can see, you got the result here, which is 4 plus 5, 9. Okay, now that we know how to script using Lua in this session, we're going to look at how on begin play and on update, on end play are used. So basically, on begin play is called when the component is initialized. And if you want to take a certain action when it's initialized, you can put in a logic here. On the other hand, here on and play is used for putting in a logic for handling things when the game terminates. And then on update is a function that's called periodically for every frame. So I'll write begin here and print out log end right here, log update right here, and see the outputs. So like this, you're gonna see lots of update outputs. And when you stop this, okay, let's see from the very top, we have the string begin followed by a bunch of updates. And finally, at the very end, you'll have this end string. Having these two functions might be a bit confusing, so I'm going to delete this one. Delete. But just remember how they work, as you're going to use these three quite often. And let's try creating a new function. New. So if you don't want to use any of them, you can just click new and name it my function. Again, like I did in the previous one. And let's see. Script components also have properties just like native components, so I can configure them. Right now, I'm going to print out my function for this, and then add a property here. And print. Let's try printing up sum. Don't forget the magic keyword sum to call the global variable here. And let's update this variable into 5. Print this out again. And to call a function, we have to use self and then colon, right? In my function with the parentheses at the end. So this is how we can call the component, call these properties or functions. And self here, always refer to the component itself. And I'm going to substitute this number when it's initially 0, but it's going to be 5 after this point. So these values can be changed dynamically in real time. And then here, okay, so we have begin, sum is 0 and sum is 5, and my function, just as I expected, because the codes here will be executed in a sequential order. Begin, and before this update, the sum is 0, so sum is 0, and then sum is 5, and lastly, my function is called, so they printed out my function. So that's how you would call a property or a function within the single component. But then you can also access components of other entities from another script component, and let's see how that works. Like I said, the keyword we use to refer component is self, right? So let's say I want to know the position of my entity. So my entity position, and I'll type self to refer to the component. And here self refers to entity, and there are actually a lot of other components to this self.entity. And for example, there is a transform component, which is the most basic one. So just in case you don't remember what this is, let's take a look here. So transform component has the value of the positions, the coordinate values. In right now, we can change the position by changing values here like this. But then I'm going to do this through coding. First, let's bring up the position information here. And then I'll try printing out if it really has the coordinate values of the position. Okay, so you can see that the position values of this object is displayed as output. It's 1 and minus 0.705. You can ignore the third one. So we've brought the property of this entity, right? It can be controlled here as well as this property panel. I'm going to move the coordinates by 0.5 every second. And you'll need a for loop to do this. For count. So I'm going to do it 5 times. So 1 through 5 by 1 and say do. In here I'll need my entity position and the x value of this. I'll move by 0.5 to the right. And for the y coordinate, which is moving up or down, I'm going to make this go up by 0.5. Next, in order to make this move again after 1 second, you need to use a simple function called wait. And I'll put 1 second here. So this whole thing will be executed, then stop for a second, and execute it again, and stop for 1 second, and so on. So let's see what happens. Before that, I'm going to clear my console, and then execute them. Okay. So here, you can see this monster, this object moving upward for 5 times by 0.5 on the x-axis and 0.5 up on the y-axis as well. That's why it's moving upwards diagonally every second, and it worked out as I expected. So this is how you can access and change properties. So let's try something else. So not only with the position property, but you can also do something else with all other properties here. So let's try scaling up every second. No, not every second, but just once after moving for 5 seconds. Let's say scale this up. So our self entity in the transform component scale. Right now it's around 1.925. So I'm going to scale up to 3 for both x and y. T transform component scale y 2, 3. And I'll click play. Let's see if that happens. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's scaling up to 3. Tada! It got much bigger. So basically, you can do almost everything by using scripts because it's really powerful. It's really powerful, and it might be difficult to do this on your own at first, but you'll get used to it after time. So you need a bit of practice. And lastly, to summarize what we've covered, there were a few types of scripts, including components, logic, in this basic scripts. And among these, you'll be using this create component the most often, and occasionally logics and scripts. In components, they are just like a regular component, the native components pre-made from MSW, which runs on an entity basis. So you always have to add the component to each entity to make them run. And then logics were unique ones. They only have one each in a single world. And they are always running in the back side of the world. So you don't have to attach them to any entities. But whereas components must be attached to entities, right? And also functions here, these are functions, can be created, or you can use the existing ones such as on map enter, initialize, on update, and so on. And for other functions that we've not gone through, you can refer to the guidelines in the developer center. When assessing the properties here, you have to use the keyword self, the magic keyword, to refer to the component itself. And you have to type entity after self to assess entities to which a component is attached. For now, we use transform component, right? In the entities right here can be assessed in the script editor through the components, and the properties and functions of the component can be called here self.sum or self colon my function parentheses. Yeah, so that's what we covered so far, and this is it for today. And if you're not familiar with coding, please feel free to ask questions in the Discord channel or the forum that I've introduced in our first lesson. So other creators or developers of this MSW will answer you any questions or just help you out when you're stuck. And I also recommend you to search the internet because answers to basic programming are always found on Google. And now the following sessions will be about network. So before watching that, if you want to be familiar with programming, watch this lesson repeatedly and get the hang of it. Thank you for watching.